The phone call came as Jason was finishing a long shift at the hospital where he worked as a paramedic. The voice on the other end was frantic. "Mr. Miller? This is St. Andrew's Medical Center. Your son Noah has been in a car accident. He's in critical condition." Jason's blood turned to ice. He barely registered the details as he grabbed his keys and raced to the hospital. His heart pounded, the thought of losing Noah unbearable. When he arrived, Jason was greeted by a grim-faced doctor. "Your son suffered a severe head injury," the doctor explained. "He's stable for now, but the next 24 hours are critical." Jason sat at Noah's bedside, holding his son's small hand, whispering promises of recovery. His mind raced, but one question gnawed at him. Where is Emily? Emily's absence. Emily had left town a week earlier, claiming she needed time for herself. She was visiting a spa resort in the mountains, a trip Jason had reluctantly agreed to despite his growing concerns about her recent distance. Jason called her repeatedly from the hospital, but his calls went unanswered. Finally, on the fifth attempt, she picked up. "Emily," Jason began, his voice trembling, "Noah's been in an accident. He's in critical condition. You need to come back now." There was a pause. "Jason, I can't leave right now," Emily said, her voice hesitant. Jason felt a surge of anger. "What the hell do you mean, you can't leave? Your son is fighting for his life." "I'm in the middle of something important," Emily replied weakly. "I'll come home tomorrow." Jason was stunned. "Tomorrow?" "Emily, he might not have tomorrow." But she had already hung up. The other man. Jason's mind reeled. How could Emily prioritize anything over Noah's life? He tried to focus on his son, but the anger at Emily burned in his chest. The next day, as Noah clung to life in the ICU, Jason's phone buzzed with a message from an unfamiliar number. The text read, "You don't know me, but you need to know the truth about your wife. She's been seeing someone else." Attached to the message was a photo. It showed Emily at the spa resort, smiling warmly as she leaned into another man's embrace. Jason's hand shook as he stared at the photo. The pieces clicked into place. The recent distance, her refusal to come home, the vague excuses. Emily wasn't finding herself. She was with him. A father's pain. Jason stared at the photo on his phone, his mind a storm of emotions. The betrayal was like a knife to the chest. Emily wasn't just distant. She was absent in the cruelest way, abandoning her family when they needed her most. He looked at Noah, lying pale and fragile in the hospital bed, hooked up to a web of tubes and monitors. His son was fighting for his life, and his mother was nowhere to be found. Jason's anger boiled over. He left the room, pacing the hallway as he tried to make sense of the situation. He thought back to all the little signs he had ignored. Emily's secretive behavior, her constant texting, her vague excuses for needing space. Now, it all made sense. Emily's excuses. When Emily finally called later that afternoon, Jason's rage had simmered into a cold fury. "Jason," she began, her voice sounding as though nothing was wrong. "How's Noah?" "Still alive," Jason snapped. "Not that you seem to care." Emily sighed. "Don't start, Jason. I told you I'd be back tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Jason barked. "Your son could die, and you're treating this like it's a damn inconvenience." "I'm doing my best," Emily replied, her tone defensive. "I just need a little more time." Jason clenched his fist around the phone. "Time for what, Emily? To wrap up your vacation with your boyfriend?" The line went silent. "You think I don't know?" Jason pressed, his voice low and menacing. "I've seen the photos. I know everything." Emily's voice was barely a whisper. "Jason, I can explain." "Don't bother," he said, cutting her off. "When you come home, don't expect things to be the same. You've made your choice, Emily. Now you'll live with it." For the next 24 hours, Jason didn't sleep. He stayed at Noah's bedside, gripping his son's hand and silently willing him to survive. The doctors had warned that the next day would be critical, but Jason refused to give in to despair. Finally, Noah showed signs of improvement. His breathing stabilized, and his color returned. Though he wasn't out of the woods, the doctors were cautiously optimistic. But the relief Jason felt was overshadowed by the growing storm inside him. Emily's betrayal consumed his thoughts, and the urge for revenge burned hotter with every passing hour. Emily's return. Emily returned home late the next evening, stepping into a house that no longer felt like her own. Jason was waiting for her in the living room, his face a mask of cold fury. "You're back," he said flatly. Emily hesitated at the doorway, clutching her bag. "Jason, Save it," he said, standing up. "Your excuses don't mean anything to me anymore. You abandoned your son to play house with another man." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "I made a mistake," she said, her voice trembling. "But I'm here now, and I want to make things right." Jason laughed bitterly. "Make things right? You think showing up after 2 days of betrayal erases what you've done? You weren't here when no one needed you. You weren't here when I needed you." "Please, Jason," Emily begged, stepping closer. "Let me explain." "Explain?" Jason snapped, his voice rising. "Explain how you left your family for a fling? Explain how you ignored your son's life-threatening accident because you were too busy with him?" Emily fell silent, tears streaming down her face. Jason stepped closer, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "You're going to regret this, Emily. I promise you that." The plan begins. Over the next few days, Jason meticulously planned his revenge. He knew Emily needed to feel the full weight of her betrayal, not just the shame, but the consequences. He began by gathering evidence. The photo from the mysterious text message was just the start. Jason hacked into Emily's email and social media accounts, uncovering a trove of messages and photos exchanged with her lover. Each new discovery fueled his anger, but Jason forced himself to stay calm. His plan required precision. The children's innocence. Mia and Ben, oblivious to the turmoil between their parents, sensed the tension in the house. "Why is Mommy crying so much?" Ben asked one morning as Jason made breakfast. Jason forced a smile. "Mommy's sad because she made a mistake. But don't worry, buddy. I'll take care of everything." Though he tried to shield them from the worst of it, Jason couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. His children deserved better, and he blamed Emily for shattering their family. Emily, meanwhile, tried desperately to mend the rift between them. She apologized repeatedly, promising to cut all ties with her lover and focus on their family. But Jason wasn't interested in her apologies. Each time she tried to talk to him, he dismissed her coldly. "Jason, please," she pleaded one night as he sat in the living room. "I'll do anything to fix this." He looked up from his laptop, his expression unreadable. "You want to fix this? Fine. Start by telling the kids why you weren't there for Noah." Emily's face crumpled. "Jason, don't drag them into this. They deserve the truth," Jason said sharply. "But you can't even give them that, can you?" Emily broke down, sobbing. But Jason felt no sympathy. The trap is set. Jason Miller's resolve hardened with every passing day. Forgiveness was out of the question. Emily's betrayal wasn't just a violation of their marriage. It was an abandonment of their son in his most vulnerable moment. Jason wanted her to feel every ounce of the pain she had inflicted, and he intended to deliver it in the most calculated way possible. Jason started by compiling the evidence of Emily's infidelity into a folder labeled The Truth. The incriminating texts, photos, and even screenshots of her social media exchanges with her lover, Ryan, painted a damning picture. He made duplicates of the folder, storing them on multiple devices and uploading them to the cloud. He didn't want Emily to have any way to deny her actions when the time came. Jason decided to stage his revenge in a way that would leave no room for doubt or excuses. He planned a family dinner, inviting Emily's parents, siblings, and a few of their closest friends. To Emily, it would appear as though Jason was attempting to mend their relationship by reconnecting with her loved ones. "Are you sure about this?" Emily asked cautiously when Jason suggested the dinner. Jason forced a smile. "I think it's time we show everyone we're working on things. It might help us move forward." Emily's eyes lit up with hope. That's a great idea. Thank you, Jason." He nodded, though his heart remained ice cold. The dinner party. The evening of the dinner arrived, and Emily was a whirlwind of activity, preparing the house and cooking an elaborate meal. Jason watched her with detached amusement, knowing she had no idea what was coming. Their guests arrived, filling the house with laughter and conversation. Emily played the gracious hostess, her smile bright but tinged with nervous energy. As dinner was served, Jason stood at the head of the table, raising his glass for a toast. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began, his tone warm. "It's been a tough few weeks for our family, but I'm grateful to have your support as we try to move forward." Emily smiled at him, her expression full of gratitude. "But," Jason continued, his voice taking on a sharper edge, "there's something I need to share. Something that's been weighing on me." The room fell silent. Emily's smile faltered as she looked at Jason, confusion and fear flickering across her face. Jason pulled out a remote and pressed a button. The television in the living room flickered to life, displaying a slideshow of the incriminating evidence. Gasps erupted around the table as the photos and messages appeared on the screen. "Jason, stop!" Emily cried, standing up, her face pale. "Why should I?" Jason said coldly. "You didn't care about hiding this when you were sneaking around with him, did you?" Emily's parents exchanged horrified glances, while her siblings looked away in awkward silence. "This is the truth," Jason said, addressing the room. "While our son was fighting for his life in the hospital, Emily was here, playing house with another man." Emily collapsed into her chair, sobbing uncontrollably. The fallout. The dinner ended in chaos. Guests left one by one, offering Jason sympathetic looks and leaving Emily to face her humiliation alone. Her parents stayed behind, their disappointment evident. "How could you do this, Emily?" her mother demanded. "You abandoned your family for this?" Emily sobbed, unable to respond. Jason watched the scene unfold with cold satisfaction. When her parents finally left, Emily turned to Jason, her face streaked with tears. "Why would you do this to me?" she whispered. Jason's voice was icy. "You destroyed our family, Emily. This is what you deserve." In the days following the dinner, Emily's life fell apart. Her parents stopped speaking to her, and her friends distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with the scandal. At work, rumors of her affair began circulating, and her once strong reputation was tarnished. Meanwhile, Jason continued to ice her out at home. He moved into the guest room, barely speaking to her except when necessary. One evening, as she tried to talk to him, Jason cut her off. "Don't bother, Emily. You've already said enough." Emily broke down, falling to her knees. "Jason, please. I know I hurt you, but I'm begging you. Don't let this destroy us." Jason stared at her for a long moment before replying coldly, "You destroyed us. I'm just making sure you understand that." Shattered lives. The fallout from Jason's public exposure of Emily's affair was swift and brutal. In the days following the dinner party, Emily's life unraveled completely. She had become a pariah in her own family and social circle, with no one willing to defend her actions. Her parents stopped answering her calls, their disappointment palpable. At work, her colleagues whispered behind her back, and her manager called her in for a meeting to address behavior unbecoming of a professional environment. "We can't have this kind of scandal associated with the company," her manager said, sliding a termination letter across the desk. Emily left the office in a daze, clutching the letter in her trembling hands. The children's innocence. Back at home, the tension in the Miller household was impossible to ignore. Mia and Ben were too young to understand the full extent of what had happened, but they could sense the animosity between their parents. "Why is Mommy crying all the time?" Mia asked one evening as Jason helped her with her homework. Jason forced a tight smile. "Mommy made some mistakes, sweetheart. She's sad because of what happened." "Did she hurt you?" Ben asked quietly. Jason hesitated, his heart aching at the question. "A little," he admitted, "but we're going to be okay." Emily spent her days confined to the house, unable to face the outside world. Her attempts to reach out to Jason were met with cold indifference. One evening, as Jason sat in the living room watching TV, Emily approached him cautiously. "Jason," she said softly, I want to apologize again. For everything. I know I can't undo what I did, but I need you to know how sorry I am." Jason didn't look at her. "Sorry doesn't fix anything, Emily. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you abandoned your family." Emily's voice broke. "I know, but I'm trying to be better for you, for the kids." Jason finally turned to her, his expression hard. You should have thought about that before you threw it all away. Jason's revenge deepens. Jason wasn't satisfied with Emily's suffering. The betrayal still burned too deeply, and he wanted her to feel the full weight of her choices. He began taking steps to ensure Emily's isolation. Using the evidence he had gathered, Jason sent anonymous messages to her remaining friends and extended family, making sure everyone knew the details of her affair. The whispers grew louder, and soon, Emily's last few allies began to distance themselves. One evening, Emily received a message from her best friend, Lauren. "I'm sorry, Emily, but I can't support what you've done. I hope you find a way to move forward, but I think it's best if we don't stay in touch." Emily stared at the message, tears streaming down her face. A father's strength. While Emily's life fell apart, Jason focused on his children. He took time off work to be there for them, ensuring they felt safe and loved amidst the chaos. Mia and Ben, though still confused by the tension, began to cling to their father, seeking comfort in his presence. "You're the best daddy in the world," Mia said one night as Jason tucked her into bed. Jason smiled, his heart aching with both love and sadness. "And you're the best little girl in the world," he replied. Emily hits rock bottom. One night, Emily sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the remnants of her once happy life. The house, once filled with warmth and laughter, now felt cold and empty. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ryan, her former lover. "Haven't heard from you in a while. Hope you're okay." Emily's hand trembled as she deleted the message without replying. Ryan, the man she had risked everything for, now felt like a stranger. She thought about calling Jason, about begging him for another chance. But deep down, she knew it was too late. Jason's moment of reflection. As the days turned into weeks, Jason began to feel the weight of his actions. Though he had set out to make Emily suffer, he couldn't ignore the toll it was taking on their children. During a therapy session, Jason confided in his counselor. "I wanted her to feel what I felt," he admitted. "But now I'm starting to wonder if I've gone too far." The counselor nodded. Revenge can provide temporary satisfaction, but it doesn't heal the underlying wounds. "Have you thought about what you want for yourself moving forward?" Jason frowned. "I want to protect my kids, but I also want to stop feeling this anger all the time." "That's a good start," the counselor said. "Healing takes time, but it begins with letting go of what you can't control." Reckoning and reflection. As the weeks passed, the once thriving Miller household became a shadow of its former self. Emily remained confined to her corner of despair, while Jason carried the heavy burden of his revenge. The house, once filled with laughter and light, now felt haunted by tension and regret. But even in the darkness, life continued to move forward. Emily's desperate plea. One evening, Emily mustered the courage to approach Jason again. She found him sitting in the backyard, staring out at the fading sunset. "Jason," she began softly, her voice trembling. He didn't turn to look at her. "What do you want, Emily?" "I want to apologize," she said, her tears already falling. "I know I've said it before, but I need you to know how deeply sorry I am. I hate what I did. I hate what I've become. But I love you, and I love our family. Please, Jason, give me a chance to make it right." Jason's jaw tightened. For a long moment, he said nothing. Finally, he turned to face her, his eyes cold. "Do you think sorry is enough?" he asked. "Do you think you can undo the damage with a few words and tears?" Emily fell to her knees, sobbing. "I don't know how to fix this. I just know I can't lose you. I can't lose the kids." Jason's voice softened, but only slightly. "You already lost me, Emily. The moment you chose him over us, you lost everything. A father struggles." Jason's relentless focus on revenge began to take its toll. The emotional energy he poured into punishing Emily left little room for anything else. One night, as he lay in bed, he thought about the life they had built together. The family trips, the quiet moments of joy, the promises they had made. He couldn't reconcile the Emily he had loved with the woman who had betrayed him. He reached out to Marcus, his closest friend, for advice. "I feel like I'm drowning in this anger," Jason admitted. "It's all I think about." Marcus frowned. "You've been through hell, Jason. No one would blame you for being angry. But you've got to ask yourself, What's the end game? Are you going to let this consume you forever? Jason stared at his drink, Marcus's words sinking in. Jason's turning point. Jason's perspective began to shift during a family therapy session he reluctantly attended with Mia and Ben. The therapist encouraged them to share their feelings openly. I miss when we were all happy, Mia said. I don't like when you and Mommy fight. Ben nodded. I just want us to be a family again. Their words pierced Jason's heart. He realized that his anger, while justified, was creating a rift that hurt his children as much as it hurt Emily. Later that night, Jason sat alone in the living room, staring at the folder of evidence he had used to destroy Emily's life. He thought about what Marcus had said, about what the kids had said. For the first time, he wondered if holding on to his anger was doing more harm than good. A conversation at last. One evening, after putting the kids to bed, Jason found Emily sitting in the kitchen. She looked up at him, her expression wary. Can we talk? He asked. Emily nodded, her heart pounding. Jason sat across from her, his hands clasped. I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened, about what you did and what I did. Emily swallowed hard. And I'm still angry, Jason admitted. I don't know if that will ever go away, but I don't want to live like this anymore. The kids deserve better than this constant tension. Emily's eyes filled with tears. I agree. I want to make things right, Jason, even if it takes the rest of my life. Jason looked at her, his expression unreadable. It's going to take time, a lot of time, but maybe we can start with focusing on the kids. Emily nodded, hope flickering in her chest. Thank you, Jason. That means more than you know. Closure and new beginnings. The tension that had once suffocated the Miller household began to ease, albeit slowly. Jason and Emily worked to establish a new dynamic, one that prioritized their children above their fractured relationship. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was progress. Jason's path forward. Jason threw himself into creating a stable, loving environment for Mia and Ben. He spent more time with them, planning activities that brought laughter back into their lives. One Saturday, as they built a treehouse in the backyard, Mia turned to Jason and smiled. Daddy, this is the most fun we've had in a long time, she said. Jason felt a pang of guilt, but also a sense of accomplishment. He was determined to give his children the childhood they deserved, even if things with Emily would never be the same. Emily's redemption arc. Emily, too, focused on rebuilding her life. Her job at the nonprofit became a source of purpose, and she used her free time to strengthen her bond with Mia and Ben. During one of their weekends together, Ben asked, Mommy, do you think you and Daddy will ever be happy again? Emily hesitated, choosing her words carefully. I hope so, buddy. But what matters most is that you and your sister are happy. Ben nodded, satisfied with her answer. A chance meeting. Jason's journey toward healing took an unexpected turn during a parent-teacher conference at Mia's school. He struck up a conversation with another single parent, a woman named Claire. Claire was warm, approachable, and shared Jason's love of woodworking. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, and by the end of the evening, they exchanged phone numbers. Jason didn't rush into anything, but the possibility of moving forward with someone new brought a spark of hope he hadn't felt in years. A fragile piece. Jason and Emily's co-parenting relationship improved over time. They communicated effectively, attended school events together, and made a concerted effort to shield Mia and Ben from any lingering tension. One evening, after a school play, Emily approached Jason in the parking lot. I just wanted to say thank you, she said, for giving me the chance to be part of their lives. Jason nodded, his expression softening. They need you, Emily. And as much as I hate what happened, I don't want to take that away from them. Emily's eyes glistened with tears. That means more than you know. A new chapter for Jason. Jason's budding friendship with Claire eventually grew into something more. They began spending time together outside of school events, and Claire's kindness and understanding helped Jason heal in ways he hadn't expected. One evening, as they sat on Claire's porch, she asked, Do you think you're ready for this? Jason smiled faintly. I don't know if anyone's ever really ready, but I want to try.